Appreciate you, man.
I just
I appreciate
you know what I mean?
that, man. Wow, over there, man. I love it. Lord.
I'm gonna like so on. Why keep quiet down? I'm gonna teach people to do this at the same time as I teach just the general audio stuff too.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 24th public hearing and speak to council sessions. The meeting will come to order as City Clerk Washington is going to call the roll.
Councilmember Gruber. Councilmember Lightfoot. Councilmember Lucian. Councilmember Martin. Councilmember Monroe. Councilmember Patterson.
Here.
Councilmember Smith. Here. Vice President Harris is excused. President Melendez.
Here, and Councilmember Gruber is about 10 minutes behind, so we should should be joining us shortly. So at this time, New York State law requires that City Council hold public hearings as it considers specific legislative actions. Clerk Washington will open each hearing, and anyone wishing to comment on the relevant matter may come to the podium at that time. After public hearings conclude, Speaker of the Council will begin. So we will begin the public hearings for the month of May. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes at the podium for public hearings, and the clerk will lead us through each hearing. As a reminder, City Council is here to listen to all matters, and it is customary we do not respond. Clerk Washington.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter. Local improvement ordinance establishing the 2024-25 assessments and authorizing an agreement for the High Falls Business Improvement District. Introductory number 133. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
There are no speakers that hear.
We have one coming up.
We have one coming up.
Are you coming, Mr. White?
I was.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Didn't see you.
Greetings, Council. You've got quite a crowd here tonight. I hope it has an influence on you. What I want to mention about the assessment is, and I've spoken about this once before, about how the assessment, reassessing like this, decreases home ownership and increases rent. But as always, I had to do more research because I guess that's what I like to do. And one of the things I found was a study that was done which showed that for every neighborhood that has 5 or more houses bought by what they call a hedge fund investor, which is someone who owns more than 100 houses or is worth more than 50 million, that if 5 or more houses in a neighborhood are bought by that entity, the crime rate goes up by 5.5% and the rent goes up by 5.2%. Now, we don't need to do this assessment. And evidence from Philadelphia, where Pennsylvania changed their law in 2014 to allow reassessment, has shown that although it was very stable with home ownership up until 2014, home ownership has dropped by 11 percentage points in the 10 years since they started doing reassessment. So this is very counter to the very housing objectives that were identified by the Housing Quality Task Force last year and in the 2018 housing study, in which, lo and behold, they said what we needed in Rochester was more home ownership and lower rents. We don't have either of those, and what you're doing is not going to make it better in these situations. I ask you to reconsider based on the evidence that is out there. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers?
With no speakers, that hearing is now adjourned.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter. Authorizing the application and grant agreement for Restore New York Community Initiative. Round 8 grant to support the downtown east side initiative. Introductory number 134. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
I'm Alex Still, and I still want to thank you for having this opportunity for the public to speak. I love found money, and this Restore New York is found money. This is a grant that can be used for a number of projects. My problem with this is it dovetails into my concerns in the previous resolution, and that's that we did in 2018, we did a home ownership study, and in 2022 and 2023, The Housing Quality Task Force did a study, and both of them found the same thing. Rochester has enough of the market rate in the above housing, but we are short in low-income housing, and we have an incredibly low home ownership rate. And I can't stress that enough, incredibly low. And what you are doing with this $4 million of found money is you're using it to create housing. Now, wouldn't it be great if 90 of those units were for low income and 56 of those units were for sale to create owner occupants? Unfortunately, as we know, that's not the case. It is 129 market rate units or above and 17 low income units or 11%. That doesn't fit into the studies that you have done, the findings you have had, and the information at your disposal about what Rochester needs. I'm sure there are projects out there put out by some of them nonprofits hoping to house homeless people or other things that really could use this money, and instead we're offered these 3 projects, all of which are providing housing that, according to the market studies we've done, we don't need, and not housing we do need. And if you look at the number of people in the audience today, many of them are here to talk about housing issues one way or another, and in all ways, their concern is low-income housing and lower rents. This is going counter to what the public here wants today, what you found in studies you should be doing, and what you consistently say you want to do to help the city. Tell the mayor to go back and find better projects, please. Thank you.
No additional speakers, that hearing is adjourned.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter. Resolution endorsing Monroe County application for Restore New York Community Initiative. Round 8 grant to support the 422 East Henrietta Road rehabilitation and 460 East Henrietta Road demolition project. Introductory number 135. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seeing no speakers, that hearing is now adjourned.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter. Local improvement ordinance authorizing special work and services related to the South Avenue / Alexander Street Open Space District for 2024-25. Introductory number 138. Any person desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seriously, I'm not doing this just to be heard. But I happen to live on South Clinton Avenue, right across from the beer park. And the beer park is owned by Elijah Wilmont, I believe, and he also is the one behind getting this open, getting the changes to the zoning in the open area to use. And I don't know if I can even begin to describe the blight that has been inflicted on the neighborhood by the Rochester Beer Park. The noise can frequently be heard hundreds of yards away at all hours of the day. When he has people in on a Friday or Saturday night, I can frequently hear it 2 blocks away at a bar, when I'm standing outside the Firehouse Bar, of which I can't hear the noise from the Firehouse Bar, but I can hear Beer Park clearly. I live across the street. I've called, I think it was 170 times in the last 2 years, the police for noise violations, which constantly happen almost every night. And here he is saying, I want to have a new area where I can have an open area. What he is really, I don't know what he's really planning on doing with this, but the 2 things this would allow would be another open air bar which again is being put into a residential neighborhood, which is going to inflict noise, traffic, and lack of parking on these residents. Further, the other thing it can have is an outdoor marijuana smoking lounge, which will inflict not just the noise and the parking, but it will also inflict the smell of the smoke, which is in a non-contained area is going to drift into the houses, which are residential all around it. This is a terrible idea to grant to someone who so flagrantly has abused it in other businesses he's owned. And here you are considering allowing another neighborhood blight on a perfectly good neighborhood. Please don't do this. I don't want other people to have to go through the constant noise, the trash that's dumped in my yard, the people walking into my backyard to smoke or have sex. Please don't inflict that on someone else. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers?
Seeing no additional speakers, that hearing is adjourned.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: amending the zoning map by changing the zoning classification of 573 South Clinton Avenue. Introductory number 139. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Can I just say the same thing over again and not come up?
We have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no additional speakers, that hearing is adjourned.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: local improvement ordinance establishing the Arnold Park Enhanced Sidewalk Special Assessment District. Introductory number 150. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seeing no speakers, that hearing is now adjourned.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: local improvement ordinance area way treatment at 23 through 27 East Main Street. Introductory number 151. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seeing no speakers, that hearing is now adjourned.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter:
Local improvement ordinance establishing
establishing the levy and budget for the special work and services of
the downtown enhancement district.
for 2024-25. Introductory number 152. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seeing no speakers, that hearing is now adjourned.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: continuation of local improvement ordinance number 1652 relating to the maintenance of upgraded streetscape features as a part of the Mount Hope Avenue Improvement Project. Introductory number 153. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seeing no speakers, that hearing is now adjourned.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: local improvement ordinance establishing the operating and maintenance costs of special assessments for streetscape enhancements for 2024-25. Introductory number 154.
Any persons desiring to
Speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seeing no speakers, that hearing is now adjourned.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: local improvement ordinance reestablishing the public market
snow removal special assessment district for 10 years
and establishing the cost of the district's special services for
4-25. Introductory number 171. Any persons desiring to speak
in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seeing no speakers, that hearing is now adjourned.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter.
Local improvement ordinance,
Reestablishing the public market, security special assessment district for 10 years, and establishing the cost of the district special services for 2024-25.
introductory number 172. Any persons desiring to speak
In reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seeing no speakers, that hearing is now adjourned.
Law public hearing will now be had on the following matter. Continuation of local improvement ordinance number 1357 relating to the Culver Merchants Commercial Parking Lot. Introductory number 178.
Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seeing no speakers, that hearing is now adjourned.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter. Local improvement ordinance establishing the operating and maintenance costs of neighborhood commercial and residential parking areas for 2024-25. Introductory number 179. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seeing no speakers, that hearing is now adjourned. So this concludes our public hearings for the month of April. We will now move on to the speak to council session. All speakers will be given 2 minutes at the podium. Speak to council is time for members of the public to comment on any and all matters related to the city. Sign-ups for this session close at 4:30 p.m. this afternoon. The list of speakers can be found in the back of the room and in the hallway. Speakers discussing legislation on this month's agenda will be prioritized on the A list. Speakers commenting on all other matters will be placed on the B list. On City Council's rules, the city clerk will call city residents first. Since this is the Rochester City Council, we first prioritize our citizens. And as a reminder, the council is here to listen and respond, and not respond to the matters before us. It is customary that we will follow up on any item that piques our interest. Council members have contact information for all of tonight's speakers. Clerk Washington will call each speaker to the podium. He asks that you respect the time of those waiting behind you to the podium at the end of your allotted 2 minutes. Clerk Washington.
Jonathan Corey is from the East District.
Jonathan here. Lisa Coleman is from the South District.
Hi, good evening, City Council. Glad to be here again this month to be on the A list about the resolution for the RFP for the vacancy study being voted on Tuesday. I'm thrilled that we're making this progress on the vacancy study. It is the first step of a needed process to opt into rent stabilization in our community, and it's not where we're going to stop. We need to do more because, as people have been talking about as they've come month after month, the rents are skyrocketing. People's tax assessments are going to force more people out of their homes and to be renters. We're seeing skyrocketing rates of our RG&E bills that are causing renters to have even more additional burden than they have now with their rent. And we need to make sure that we are stopping things that are pushing our community towards profit-driven models like the bid, instead of creating a decommodified community where there's housing and plentiful opportunities for all people. So I'm here tonight because I'm asking you to vote yes on Tuesday on Resolution 141 to conduct an RFP about the vacancy study. We need rent stabilization in this community. We need it to stop the investors that Alex was talking about. Rent stabilization, it takes property off of the speculative market so that investors aren't coming in, hiking up our rents even more than they are now and pushing our community out. So thank you.
Justin is followed by Jada Cook, and then Peter Peters.
I'm sorry, Justin is from the East District.
Hi all. My name is Justin Kieber-King. I'm a tenant in the town of Brighton and a member of the citywide tenant union of Rochester. I'm here today to ask you for three things. One, to support the vacancy study and vote yes on 141. Two, to formally withdraw the permission to file a district plan. And three, to create transparent assessments today and transparent assessments tomorrow. With regards to affordable and stable housing, what I'm really asking for is that when the time comes to vote both on this vacancy study and future related housing issues, have a thought for the children in the communities that you represent and how your vote will affect all of them. What traumas and health issues do we cause them by not passing legislature to support stable and affordable housing? A 2019 study done by the faculty at the Massachusetts Medical School in Worcester found that, to quote, homeless children were more frequently diagnosed with health conditions such as respiratory infections, fever, and allergies, as well as less common ones such as low birth weight, injuries, and developmental disorders. Then they went on to say, these findings suggest that unstable housing leads to homelessness, that unstable housing leading to homelessness has a significantly greater impact on newborns than low income does alone. If our community's children really are our future, we should be doing everything in our power to create legislature that provides them a stable place to live and grow up in. That's why I'm asking you to please vote yes on 141, withdraw permissions to file a district plan, and also to create transparent assessments today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Data is from the Northeast District, and she is followed by Peter Peters.
Good evening. Good evening, members of the City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I made it to the A-list. It's only my second time here, so I guess I picked it. Can you hear me now? How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
This is only my second time.
Sorry. We'll go ahead and I'll give you a full 2 minutes now.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I stand before you again to urge you to vote in favor of the vacancy study and eventually opt in to rent stabilization. My landlord, Buckingham Properties, is raising my rent by 33% this year and has let the building fall into such disrepair that they have not had a valid certificate of occupancy since April 1st. It may be too late for me, but I urge you to bring rent stabilization to Rochester to protect others. Housing is a human right. I'm also here tonight to speak on RAS and lend my voice to the voiceless of Verona Street. Sorry, I was appalled, shocked, horrified, and embarrassed to hear the dire straits that they are in. I barely have words to express how angry I am that you have allowed this to happen. It says a lot about a person and a city council, the way that they treat the most vulnerable creatures. I adopted one of my beloved pets from RAS 8 years ago this Saturday. He's my little shadow, and I am so grateful that RAS has saved him. Now it's your turn. Save Verona Street. Thank you.
He's from the East District, and he's followed by Samantha Dinga.
President Scott and members of the City Council, my name is Peter Peters. I'm the co-chair of the advocacy team of REACH. Last Sunday, my wife Sarah and I were giving a presentation of REACH's history and mission in support of housing justice for men and women experiencing homelessness. We were doing this at the Third Presbyterian Church. When it was time for questions, a woman spoke in support of our work, but then added her own story. She is a tenant and has lived in her home for several years. So far, she has managed to pay the rent she is asked to pay, but she said she lives in fear that she will not be able to do this in the future. What can be done? Well, the first thing I said to her was, no one in this city should live in fear in their own home. I hope that you, members of council, agree with this. I then told her of the citywide tenant union's campaign for rent stabilization and that REACH is supporting this campaign. It is our understanding that, as reported in the Democratic and Chronicle, more than 40% of Rochester residents are rent burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their paycheck on rent, and roughly 850 people are homeless each night in Monroe County. I'm confident that many of the people mentioned also live in fear of losing their homes. And I suspect that a good number of these people live on fixed incomes, which rise only 2 to 3% a year. We can alleviate this living in fear if we enact rent stabilization bill, and I urge you to do so. So we need a vacancy study first. Thank you.
Again, from the South District, and she's followed by David Sutler's Addis.
Hello, my name is Samantha Dinga, and I am here again today to urge you to pass the vacancy study, engage in a study for a public utility, have transparent assessments, and support rent control. The rising cost of housing and utilities is a race issue, a class issue, and a disability justice issue. The ways these experiences impact each other make the already marginalized members of our communities significantly more affected by negative outcomes. I am a licensed mental health therapist, and I hear daily about the impact of housing insecurity in the Rochester area on people's physical and mental well-being, exacerbating pre-existing conditions and promoting people to enter unsafe and abusive environments out of feelings of necessity. Providing affordable housing and utilities would give people the stability to pursue and enjoy meaningful activities, as well as energy and time to engage more with giving back to their local community. The disproportionate rent and utility inflation we're seeing now inhibits the functioning of our most underserved community members, and it does not have to go on. A side note about things that do not have to go on, this week was the 75th anniversary of the Nakba. 7.5 decades ago, the Palestinian people were displaced, and to this day they continue to be in ever-shrinking and worsening conditions. More than 35,000 Palestinians have been killed since last October by Israel's attacks. There is no freedom and safety for some without freedom and safety for all. Again, I encourage you to pass Resolution 141 and the vacancy study and support rent stabilization, transparent assessments, and a study for a public utility. Thank you.
Xavier, I believe it's Sutler's Addis. Linda Smith.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, and she's from the Northwest District, and she's followed by Diane Stingley.
Joe Sayer.
Good evening. Fuzzy math. The historic tax decrease called a pact with the people is fuzzy math. Are we really experiencing increased property values, or is it a ruse? The narrative presented sounds grandiose. However, the devil is in the details. Rochesterians have a gaslighting narrative that band-aids temporarily but damages permanently. We are requesting the following: 1, procedural fairness; 2, transparency in the process and timeline; and 3, statistics of long-term effects. We do thank you in advance for your unanimous agreement to fund the vacancy study, but we're counting on you, City Council, to do the right thing.
Okay, she's from the East District, and she's followed by Christina Chrisman.
My name is Diane Stengel, and I'm a homeowner in the City of Rochester. When my husband and I first moved to the area in 1986, we rented an apartment in Fairport and were customers of Fairport Electric. Our bills were less than $100 a month, if memory serves. They were efficient and accurate with their billing, and we were delighted that our power came from environmentally friendly hydroelectric. A year later, we bought our house in the city and became customers of RG&E. Our bills skyrocketed to about $600 a month, a shocking increase. Since then, decades of state regulation, fines, and investigations have failed to make RG&E a better utility. Even with a 34% rate hike in distribution costs over the next 3 years, RG&E makes serious and ongoing billing errors, fails to make promised grid investments, and fails to meet climate goals. It's clear that RG&E no longer meets our needs. Public power is not just an idea. Fairport Electric is a working model of public power proven for decades to be superior to RG&E. Profits are reinvested to improve service and lower rates to its customers. Other public power utilities provided a 25% rate decrease on day one, even with acquisition and legal costs. How many RG&E customers would switch to Fairport Electric if they could? Me, for one. Okay? Customers would switch to RG&E. Please approve a funding of feasibility and implementation study to investigate taking over and replacing RG&E with a public utility like Fairport Electric in the city and county. We need unbiased and thorough information to make a sensible choice at the polls. That's democracy. Also, please vote yes on Intro 141 to fund the vacancy study as a first step towards rent stabilization. Also, I want you to investigate the poor and unacceptable response by the mayor to the recent emergencies, the water main break and the boil water advisory. The goal is to directly reach every resident in the affected areas, not just hold a press conference. This craven response demonstrates how little the mayor cares for the people of Rochester. Thank you.
Followed by Ryan Acuff.
My name is Christina Chrisman. I'm president of the Federation of Social Workers. I'm here on the over 800 members of our labor union. We work for the Monroe County Department of Human Services. We have titles such as caseworker, who works in CPS, adult protective, public defender, and at the Youth Detention Center. We also cover titles such as examiners, who determine financial assistance programs, and maintain those cases. We like to call ourselves the first responders to poverty in Rochester. Our members not only live and work in the city, but we also serve our clients, a vast amount who also live in the city. Our labor union believes in fighting not only for policies that would better our members and workers in general, but we also have a duty to fight on behalf of policies that would benefit the clients that we serve. We believe that so much so that it's in our bylaws. So 2.5 years ago, we voted to endorse the Rochester for Energy Democracy campaign to explore moving to a public utility. So we are here on behalf of Metro Justice to ask you to please consider doing that. We are also here on behalf of the rent stabilization campaign by the Rochester Tenant Union. Our members overwhelmingly voted earlier this year to endorse that campaign, so we're asking that you vote yes for the vacancy study on Tuesday. Thanks.
Ryan from the East District, and he's followed by Matthew Simpson.
Council, I just wanted to speak tonight in favor of housing stability, and that this council move towards concrete, actionable steps towards ending massive rent hikes, rate hikes, and tax hikes, and giving the community more control over the tax process, the utility process, and our rents. And I think this is something concrete that this council can do. These are local issues that they have control over. In addition, I wanted to first applaud you, Councilmember Melendez, for introducing this resolution, and for everybody on council that's fighting for housing stability. This is a critical first step towards addressing some of our major issues. And I appreciate some of the thoughtful responses that were happening at the committee meeting, and I wanted to see, much time, but to address some of the comments. I know you had some concerns, Councilmember Patterson, about the study. The previous study, I just want to make clear that the concern was not on the math. It was the methodology. So the former commissioner came before this council, or the previous council, you were here in 2021, and said we were going to do a verification process. They didn't do one. They called that a bait and switch, right? They say they're going to do one thing and they do another thing. The second piece was, if they had assumed 0 vacancies for no responses, the results would have been 3.1%. So we would have been eligible based on that criteria. Secondly, you said, well, if it's during the pandemic, why would it be any different? It would be worse now. According to the census data, that the vacancy rate has gone down. So in 2022, it was 5%, 2021, 5%, 2022 is 4%. So we believe it needs to be redone with the proper methodology. And yes, we'll see where the results go. Thank you.
Matthew is from the East District, and he's followed by Alex White from the East District.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Matthew Simpson. I'm an honor student at MCC and a tenant in Upper Monroe neighborhood, and I also have family renting here in the city and in the county. This is my first time speaking in front of y'all, so excuse me if I'm a little bit nervous. But first thing I wanted to get off, I wanted to thank Miguel for getting the ball rolling with the moving ahead with the vacancy study. So look forward to see future progress with that. And the main reason I'm here is because I'm here to promote tenant rights and responsibilities and to ask the city council to opt into good cause eviction tenant protections. I've been lucky to have a benevolent landlord since moving to Rochester, but I've had my share of bad landlords too, and what I've learned is that you can't rely on your landlord's good graces to make sure you have a place to live. We need housing no less than we need food or water, and inaccessible and hazardous housing is a key concern for all of your constituents. It affects every aspect of our lives, and we're counting on you to address those concerns in material ways. So now that you have an opportunity to improve our housing security with the new law made for us by the state, we expect for you to take that opportunity. I'd also like to call for the city to complete funding for the feasibility study for a municipal non-for-profit utility. We've appealed with the county yet again last month to take part in studying of alternatives to RG&E, but time and again they've refused to address our grievances. So I want to join everyone else in asking that you take the next necessary steps to secure the rest of the funding for the feasibility study. It's sad to see the county refuse to work with the city, but we know that we share the brunt of the hardship for RG&E's practices, and so it's our duty to take initiative and set an example for what positive leadership can achieve in the city. And thank you for my time.
By now, you should have noticed that there is a theme to tonight's meeting. It's really, and a lot of the legislation before you considers this, and this is about housing and housing costs. And whether we're talking about the rent stabilization or an RG&E study for public utility or the reassessment or the Restore New York grant, what we're really talking about here is housing. And with the Restore New York grant, you had an opportunity to do something about these issues, and you chose not to. 12% of that project is going to be for low-income housing, which is actually going to be about rent for $900, which I don't think the majority of the people here would think is low income. After all, the county subsidy is $440 a month. That's more than double that. So what I'm thinking is that the people here are standing up for the things that you've put forward. that they have seen that they think has a chance to address these problems. And if you don't support these things, my question is, what is it that you're going to do about this? I mean, in 2022, the large investors bought 89% of the properties. And remember, that comes with, in almost all cases, because it was like 1,500 purchases. That means crime goes up by 5%, rent goes up by 5%, and evictions go up by 4%. So what are you going to do about this? You need to do something. The people here are hurting. Thank you.
Followed by Joseph Bradley.
Good evening, City Council members. First of all, I want to thank President Miguel Melendez for introducing the vacancy study. And we are really looking for it to be a unanimous decision on Tuesday to vote for it. I think that will send a great message to the community. Secondly, I want to say to you guys as City Council members, you guys really have to stand more for the people. And I really mean that. I shouldn't have to be doing what I've been doing on this reassessment, right? I don't get paid, right? And I'm acting as though I am representing your constituents, and I shouldn't have to do that. You guys have to be more independent of the mayor's office and the administration in terms of being spoon-fed information from the administration, because that is their narrative and their perspective. You guys need to get independent verification and information about the assessment process, because it's flawed, and it has been flawed for years. We are going to be having a community live stream. Several news stations are going to cover it, and radio stations next Thursday, the 23rd, at the Ark of the Covenant Church. I'm inviting each and every one of the city council members to be there. I think you should be there because there's a lot of people that have not been heard. Secondly, as you well know, several of the city council members have instituted public hearings, one on the 30th of May and then the 6th of June. I urge and encourage you guys to come out and hear the people and hear experts that are separate from the city and administration about the process and how things can be improved and how it needs to be fair. So with that in mind, it's about the people. Is it about the people? Is it about the people?
Mr. Harris, your time is up.
Joseph Bradley.
He's from the Northwest District, and he's followed by Karen Fox.
Good evening, City Council. Everything is connected. Everyone's saying the same thing to you. The vacancy study, the reassessment, rent stabilization. Hopefully you all will vote unanimous this coming Tuesday. You know, the vacancy study, things have been delayed, and it's starting to feel like that over and over again. Things keep getting delayed. It's reminding me of what's going on at the federal level with former President Donald Trump. It's like no one wants to do anything because, you know, he's one of them. He's one of them. His things he's done have been crooked and even illegal, and I know when you folks took this job, you didn't say, I want to get behind a politician and do something crooked. I don't know what the city charter says, but the way things have been fast-tracked through, you know, Rochester with over 600 residents and stuff like that to try and go through this reassessment, it sounds completely crooked. To have 3 people come in and do the final assessment and just rub stamp what he wants, it's got to be crooked. So come on, please, do your job. Go against them. Don't be afraid to go against one of your own. Thank you. Bye.
Karen Fox is from the Northwest District, and she's followed by Cheryl Robinson. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
I was going to speak on just the ambassadors, but I'd like to start out by saying, after a year and a half of being homeless due to an arson fire, we were finally able to get an apartment at the beginning of March. A year and a half living in homeless shelters. With trying to get an apartment was horrible. They weren't letting you know what was out there, nothing. So I think, please pass that. What I came to speak about was the ambassador program. Now, from what I understand, it's awesome. However, we already have those walking outreach in the Lyle Avenue area. I have managed to move back into the Lyle Avenue area and love my home. Do we need those ambassadors? Would it be better to put the money into those that are already walking outreach? I love Cameron Street. I've utilized Cameron Street for pretty close to 30 years. They've been great all that time. They also have an outreach. Wouldn't it, that $100 and some odd thousand be better off spent going into what is already being done rather than a new program? That's the only question I have. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Good evening. Reassessment. Please pause. I have zero trust regarding the press conference I witnessed because of all the things that were said. If the fix was the real solution, why wasn't that done initially? So that's bothering me. The grocery program that was rolled out into the neighborhoods, I'm not sure enough was done to determine who the neighborhood wanted to participate in this opportunity. I was passing out flyers for another event, and I happened to mention it to them. They didn't know anything about it. They currently already have fruits and vegetables, so I'd like to get more information on how those businesses were determined. Parking meters, again. I'm thrilled that we have new parking meters. But today, as I was waiting for someone to come out of the public safety building, I was on Court Street, and I noticed this couple was having a hard time with the meter. I went over there and tried to help them, and it just turns out that it wasn't taking the credit card, and he tried several credit cards. So I called it into 311, and hopefully the new meters will perform a little better. Public safety, that's an endless issue for me. There's a bunch of events that are coming up, they're going on right now. Actually, one is right now at 6 o'clock. And we just need to get the word out for people to participate so they can have their voice heard. Raz and Voiceless of Verona, you need to get behind them. They're awesome, they care, they need the support that you could provide. Let's see, oh, public safety. We need our Goodman section office back on East Main and Laura Street. The ambassador program, there's a reason for RFPs, and hoping more due diligence is done before Cameron is awarded. No! I challenge you. I need somebody up here to do a ride-along with me in the Beechwood neighborhood, please.
Your time is up, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Hazel.
Dwight Robinson?
Thanks for getting me in. For some reason, it said I was here for something else, but I'm here for the reassessments. But also, I want to thank you guys for getting rid of the bid. I want to thank you for voting to do the rent stabilization. I'd like to get a unanimous vote, 9 people voting together. We need you guys to work together to get things done. Also, what else? I want to make sure that people have a stable place to live. So I'm going to talk about the reassessments quick, and then also my friend, she had to leave. Her daughter had her concert, so she had to go. I'm going to talk about her stuff. Okay, so the unfair assessment were pushed through with desperate public outrage. I don't think anybody, except maybe one person, they were happy with their reassessment, because I haven't heard anybody happy about it. I don't think anybody here is happy about it. We are all working together on the same thing. Whether we're talking about rent stabilization, housing, it's all the same thing. We are actually working together as a coalition trying to get people to participate in government, right? To participate and let their voices be heard and say, we're not happy with this. Everybody should be at the Lilac Festival. The public hearings were held in back rooms, and nobody from the public could actually access the public hearings, and they weren't really fair. We had 5 minutes to state our case for each house that you have. And nobody, they just shook their heads and then go on. Lonsbury commented and said they're playing politics. They raised the assessments, they lowered the taxes. It doesn't make any sense. And he was right. I never agree with Lonsbury. This is crazy. He said it clearly. Come out Thursday, please. City Council, you're going to get a formal invitation. Come out, hear the people, participate in the simulcast. And my friend, she wanted to know about the airport and the trees getting knocked down over past Genesee Street. Why is that happening? So, all right.
She's from the East District. She's followed by Tiara Grayson.
I've been a dog walking volunteer at Rochester Animal Services for almost 15 years. Volunteers are concerned about safety when walking dogs in the Brown Square Park area. Two concerns are the lack of lighting in the park and the difficulties of communicating with security and staff when help is needed. Volunteers have expressed their concerns through the chain of command, but efforts to remedy the situation have stalled. We are asking City Council to help resolve these issues to ensure the safety of our volunteers. Volunteers start walking dogs as early as 7 a.m. and may be walking as late as 7 p.m. when the park is completely dark in the winter. In the past, the park has had better lighting. There are lights on all 4 sides of the brick building in the park. Those lights have not been on when volunteers are walking in the dark. In December, a request was made that lighting be checked and fixed. We were told that request would take months to address, and the lighting issue has not been addressed yet. Having the ability to communicate with security and staff is crucial while we are out of the building walking a dog. Walkie-talkies are available, but the walkies are not dependable. There are not enough for each walker on a shift to have one. Volunteers have been promised new walkie-talkies for months. The park has usually been a safe place to walk the dogs. However, volunteers must have access to quick and easy communication when a situation does occur. There have been at least 5 incidents since April 12th where immediate communication has been needed. The most serious situation occurred when a man in the park was threatening to shoot dogs and people. Volunteer walkers had to depend on their phones to send a message that was forwarded to staff. Using phones to communicate is inefficient and unsafe. It presents issues when trying to maintain control of a dog while trying to call or text for help. In the absence of a shelter director, we are asking for your assistance to help resolve these very important safety issues. A strong, experienced leader is urgently needed to advocate effectively for the shelter, including
Ms. Grayson here. Adam Eaton. He is from the East District and he's followed by Ingrid Phillips.
Hello, City Council. My name is Adam Eaton, and I'm the Executive Director of Rochester Artists Collaborative. We advocate for hundreds of local artists, and I'm here today to advocate for a pivotal amendment to our city budget. I proposed an increase of $1 million to go to the existing Arts and Bloom program. Our city grapples with a high poverty rate of 31% and an alarming rate in crime and noticeable homicides. Most other cities and towns in New York provide 1% of their entire yearly budget. Rochester is far behind in our investment in the arts. This is one of the many reasons why Rochester has so many problems. Rochester Artists Collaborative asks is simple. We ask President Melendez to introduce a budget amendment moving $1 million to Arts and Bloom from council priorities or undistributed funds, $1 million for this year's budget. $1 million is not even 1% of our city's $600 million budget and would make a great impact in our community. President Melendez, please sponsor this proposal and introduce a budget amendment. I ask all council members to approve this budget amendment, and you will bring beauty and hope back to our streets, reduce crime, and create a nurturing environment where everyone can thrive. The arts help every citizen in Rochester. This is our chance to lead by example, to show that Rochester truly believes in the power of the arts and the people. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. Amazing Wilkins Street, hashtag 1461. Imagine your child no matter what wrong they do, there won't be any accountability. I stand with only God as my mouthpiece. I'm here to put a face to a more detailed letter to follow. I'm here to talk about the injustice that I've endured at the hands of our Jenny. I refuse to join a group to prove my injustice. My renovations funds have gotten depleted by having to deal with the greed and don't care attitude by our Jenny. After countless calls and emails about my bill being incorrect for the upstairs section, they don't care. Right now, I'm having to make payments plus my monthly bill. Now, the downstairs section that each month has been incorrect. In the month of February, I received a bill for it in the amount of $1,299. After submitting a photo and calls, I had to wait 5 days, all to find out my bill was less than $100, with a 600 points in difference. Imagine my anxiety. In the month of March, the same issue, my bill was off by 85 points. My question to you is, how long will you not listen to the cry of the people? How long will you allow our Genie executive to enjoy the financial benefits with their families without any accountability? How long will you stay silent while families turn off the heat, including myself, in fear of increasing bills? As I stated before, God will continue to guide me. I'm not going to stop until I get a refund. I don't want the credit. I want my funds back. Isaiah 41:10 says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with the righteous right hands." Please listen to the cry of the people. I need to focus on amazing Wilkins Street to bring love and peace to my community. Thank you.
Carl Giordino. He's from the Northwest District.
I'm not Chinese and my name isn't Confucius, but I am getting older and I do consider myself to be somewhat of a wise man. Day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year, we witness how unsafe Rochester, New York is, and it's true. Our mayor conveys statistics about improvement from one side of his mouth, while the other side preaches to us how it's our responsibility to improve people's actions. Instead of giving us statistics about statistics on how about the root cause? Instead of giving us statistics, how about we all know what's wrong? No accountability. Rather than promote do the right thing, how about let's end the bad behavior? Let's try some good old-fashioned you break it, you bought it exercise. We're out of control. We're living in fear. We can't trust anyone. We're not safe. Stolen cars, rental theft, personal disputes, etc. Let's make it end. Let's figure it out. Let's administer your resources to protect us. Return to us our quality of life. We report what we see. We call for and request for more help. Enough is enough. We demand action. Please start with speeding on Lake Avenue. There was another incident tonight, a fatality, 90 miles an hour in a 35 zone. Let's continue with parking on Stonewood at the bar where they alter their minds legally. We promote mind-altering behavior.
Ferguson. She's from the East District, and she's followed by Paul Watkins.
Thank you. I've been a volunteer at Rochester Animal Services for 5 years. In 2 recent letters sent to Council and to the City Administration, and in my prior appearances at Speak to Council, I've addressed the crises facing RAS due to a serious lack of leadership. No shelter director since November 2023, and no shelter vet since April 30th. I won't repeat the details because you've received those letters. I have an important concern to express today regarding the search for a shelter director, especially this concern in regard to compliance with legislation, state legislation enacted in 2022 that governs animal shelters. At this time, Rochester Animal Services is woefully deficient in critically important areas governed by those regulations that must be met by December 2025. A highly qualified, experienced shelter director must be hired to address the current crises of overcrowding and unsafe conditions, to advocate effectively for the shelter, and to lead the work toward compliance with the aforementioned legislation. The current job posting and search process do not inspire confidence that such a leader will be recruited. After no action since Chris Fitzgerald's resignation in February, the director's job was finally posted on May 10th and closes on May 23rd. The request to include a volunteer on the search committee has not been honored. What is most worrying is that the qualifications given in the job posting leave it open to appoint a person who has not served as a shelter director or assistant director before and who has virtually no animal welfare experience. Many share the fear that there is an inside candidate somewhere in the city bureaucracy in line for this position. That would spell disaster for the shelter and ensure that RAS continues to be a source of embarrassment rather than a point of pride. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm a volunteer at the Rochester Animal Services and one of the many volunteers who signed the letters that were submitted to the City Council detailing the urgent and immediate crisis the shelter faces. I'm going to address 2 aspects of those letters. The first is an absence of a full-time shelter vet. While the initial reaction might be this is a personnel issue that we should left to the Department of Human Services, this ignores the fact that a lack of a shelter vet fundamentally affects the ability of the shelter to provide the medical care that sick and injured animals require and ensure that all animals are properly taken care of, including spay, neutering, and rabies shots. The letter details these problems and makes it clear that without a full-time shelter vet, the shelter simply cannot function. City Council should use its authority to ensure that all the city resources are used to immediately find and hire a full-time shelter vet. Otherwise, the city could lose a vital community resource. The second issue is the long-term consequences of not fixing the shelter's problems. As we set out in the letter, the state legislature just passed regulations that go into effect in the next year that require all shelters in New York meet certain requirements and be licensed. The shelter as it is now does not meet many, if not all of those requirements, and it needs to be done by the end of next year. Otherwise, it will be inspected and won't be licensed and will have to be closed. So it is clear that this has to start now. You have a year and a half to go. The problems are many that have to be addressed. If you don't start now, it will fail. You won't have time and it will be too late, and the shelter will fail the inspection, not be licensed, and have to close. So we would urge this council to do whatever it can to immediately start addressing all the problems that the shelter faces now to avoid having it closed by the end of next year. Thank you.
Evening, Mr. President, members of council. This city owes its existence to 3 businessmen who came to the Genesee Valley from Hagerstown, Maryland in the second decade of the 19th century. One of those men's name is a word that every one of us says multiple times a day. The second's name graces the streets for immediate west that I have walked down thousands of times. For most of our city's history, the name of the third has been remembered only in the name of an insignificant alley that forms a hypotenuse between Lyle and North Plymouth Avenues. We're told a pat story that that's because a few years after he died and a few months after Colonel Rochester died, the village board was angry that his son won a lawsuit against them and renamed Carroll Street State Street. That's nonsense. None of us would rename something honored in honor of Robert F. Kennedy because we're angry at Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It was because he was a Catholic and, worse than that, an Irish American Catholic. I understand the urge to redress slavery, and if you wanted to erase from the map the name of any person tainted by the evil of human beings owning other human beings, I could respect that even if I didn't entirely agree with it. What I can't respect is selective cherry picking of what you think is low-hanging fruit. If you had the courage of your convictions, you would rename this city and you would start there. And if you're not willing to start there, then do not renew the legacy of your predecessors' anti-papist and hibernophobic bigotry. Thank you and have a good night.
Eleanor Payton. Azul Bounds. He is from the East District and he's followed by Ismail Walker.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Abdul Bounds. I'm a safety and security officer in the Rochester City School District. Well, I know you two entities probably don't work good together. But I'm calling here tonight because I went to the county and said it in front of Democrats and Republicans, and most of you are Democrats. It is time to come together in Monroe County because, again, we have a violence epidemic with our young people that, again, I invite y'all to come to Franklin High School and see what goes on. I'm from poverty. I know what poverty is. I've been there. I grew up in 14621, Section 7. I know what it is to not have nothing. I urge you people to, again, take a look at yourselves every day in the mirror and question yourselves. Do you really care about the young people in the state of Rochester? Again, question yourself. Because this year, things will hit the fan. Again, you will see me again, and most of you know who I am, and I will hold you accountable. I'm not here to call anybody out. I just want the truth. I want the violence to stop. This bashing the police and this anti-police stuff, we have to bring back law and order into our schools. That's why it's spilling into our streets. There's no order in our schools. When the school districts say they can't suspend, something got to do with money over there. I advise City Council to look into that. That $1 billion budget, look into that. Something suspicious is going on. Thank you.
Ismail Walker. He is from the East District and he's followed by Alan Blair.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ishmael Walker. I'm here on behalf of Metro Justice for Rochester for Energy Democracy. I'm going to tell you a little story. I used to work for an RG&E utility contractor called Heath Consultants, and they do the meter reading, gas leak survey, and line locating. Like Iberdrola, Heath Consultants is not from Rochester. They're based in Houston, Texas. What's interesting about Heath, aside from not being union, is that their employees see the most RG&E customers face-to-face, despite not being directly employed by RG&E. When I was in the job, customers would see my RG&E Avangrid badge and ask me all kinds of questions that RG&E would not directly inform Heath employees about, such as being charged an additional $25 a month for not upgrading to smart and gas electric meters. There's been instances where People have been submitting their meter reads incorrectly without knowing at all, which could be the difference of $5 or even $500 on their bill. Customers getting double billed, which is a major problem. And let's not forget about short notice shutdowns. And while it's challenging to get on the phone with RG&E customer service, they vent their frustration with the meter readers or the leak surveyors. So we have a utility company from Spain that hires a utility contractor from Texas, determining what's best for the Rochester's energy system. The frontline workers don't know anything about RG&E's decisions and their process, but are expected to deal with the consequences. What else does the average RG&E customer not know about? How does that build trust in the community? The people of Rochester deserve the truth about the utilities, and that can only be achieved through a public utility study. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alan Blair. I live on Milburn Street near Park Avenue, and I'm going to tell you as a physician about the health benefits of a public utility. Yes, health benefits. As you know, structural racism has made Rochester both poorer and sicker than surrounding towns. Our residents have more chronic diseases and need more medications to treat those diseases. Even with insurance, some of those medications have hefty copays. That leaves city residents with big medication bills. Now, 3 out of 10 Rochesterians pay more than 6% of their gross income to RG&E. Some pay a lot more, up to 25%. So when they get hit with a big winter bill or one of RG&E's very hard to fix overcharges, they have some hard choices to make. Getting evicted, having your heat cut off, or buying less food hurts you now. But you can stop those pills treating your blood pressure, diabetes, and heart, and you don't notice it right away. I know people do this because I've seen it in my practice. And I've also seen the consequences. People live sicker, they miss more work, they get hospitalized more, and yes, they die sooner. But a public utility can help. First, their rates are 30% cheaper on average than investor-owned utilities. That alone will make a difference. But even more important, a utility focused on the needs of ratepayers rather than the shareholders will be less likely to force ratepayers to choose between their health and their heat. The suburbs don't need this kind of help the way the city does. Maybe that's partly why they bailed on us in the county legislature last month. But we don't need them to act. We can create a fairer, better public utility just for the city of Rochester. So vote to fully fund the feasibility study. It will literally save lives. And vote yes on 141.
Thank you very much. My name is Joe Sayre, and I'm proud to be one of the more than 800 RG&E employees that live and work here in Monroe County in the city of Rochester. I'm a 19th Ward resident and have been for a long time. You know, I feel very fortunate because I work for a company that encourages me and allows me to work to improve the city of Rochester and the surrounding region I care so deeply about. I'm deeply concerned that City Council is considering spending taxpayer dollars to study the nationalization of a private company. While RG&E has had its struggles, I have seen in my 2 years with the company the improvements that we have been made and the commitment to improve that radiates from our president and CEO, Trish Nilsson. Under her leadership, the Rochester team has had a significant positive impact on this community. Since 2021, we've invested over $14 million to support local projects to include business attraction, expansion, and retention. Some examples of this include our vital support of the creation of the Neighborhood of Play, securing Ultrafill, a first-in-the-world beverage research and development facility that is going into the Sibley building, and providing support so DeCoco chocolate crafters could expand into a brand-new facility on Main Street, greatly increasing their headcount. It's because of my deep roots in this community that I'm staunchly against a government-controlled utility. I have lived through the failures of a government-owned utility. During a winter storm over the Christmas holiday in 2022, a power outage and water main break both occurred. My power was restored in 4 hours. I didn't have access to clean drinking water for 4 days. So that being said, RG&E has some of the lowest rates in New York State. A vote yes on funding the study is a vote yes on higher rates, poor customer service, and the unreliable infrastructure consistent with what has been seen when we have tried to privatize any utility in a large market in the previous 30 years. Thank you.
Courtney Bloom. She's from the East District, and she's followed by Carlton.
I'm Courtney Flume. I'm a homeowner in Park Ave neighborhood, and my husband and I are also currently working on opening 2 small businesses, one in the Central District and one, in Center City, and one in the Park Ave neighborhood. I also teach about social change at the University of Rochester. I'm here to advocate for the city to move forward with the funding the study on public power without the funding and leadership from the county. I want this study because I believe in Rochester and our people. I believe in you and the work that you all do. And I believe in our city that has the drive to take back our power grid from international shareholders and run an organization we can be proud of that puts the needs of our community members first. You all voted unanimously to fund the study on the condition the county takes the lead. We know you believe in this, and we are asking for the courage and the resourcefulness to fully fund and commission a city-led study on replacing RG&E with a public utility, inviting a non-voting advisory committee of community organizations and relevant experts to inform the study process. This is about getting facts and getting to make a choice. We the people encourage City Council not to let fear-mongering and disinformation from RG&E's corporate owners prevent the public from getting the answers on whether a public utility can serve us better. I understand this is not a simple ask. You'll need to find the funding and capacity amongst your other initiatives. I believe in you, Metro Justice believes in you, and our city does too. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carlton. I'm a city resident and tenant in Councilmember Lupien's district, and I'm here to voice my support for the city to fully fund a public utility implementation study. So I just want to start with some reasons, and I don't even know how to narrow it down, but I guess I'll just start with mine, with my RG&E issues. So, I mean, I get bills like once in a while that are surprisingly way bigger than usual sometimes, and I'm just not making the money to eat that without question. I've had billing issues. I call several times. Nobody knows what to do, or they refer me to somebody. I sit on hold for an hour before I just give up. I've been to the office in person. I've been told issues will be resolved within the week. They're never resolved. And I know from talking to people that that's just like the start of issues with RG&E. Secondly, I can appreciate that the people in this room asking you to fund this study are not your only constituents. I appreciate that the easy thing to do here and the thing that near-term moneyed interests would say to do would be to do nothing more. But what the study would mean for people like myself is hope. Hope that our grid can be controlled by us, that we can have a say, and that we can at least consider what a better, more democratic future might look like for us. And more importantly, it will also tell us and give us hope that our institutions like City Council can still hold gigantic corporations accountable when they fail and exploit us. I don't really care about acknowledgments that RG&E has flaws or that it might be looked into someday. I want real accountability here for RG&E. So that means looking into what a future without RG&E could look like what Fairport Electric has, like what Churchville and Spencerport have, and at least getting the facts so that we can make an informed decision in the future. So I'm asking you here to side with your constituents' needs, not the needs of a mega corporation, and to think about your legacy here. And I would also encourage you to not only give ear or lip service, but also to take action to our friends who want real police accountability from the Police Accountability Board and who want to protect our most vulnerable from unfair rent increases by starting with a vacancy study to eventually get to rent stabilization. Thank you.
Lori Thomas. She is from the East District, and she's followed by Maria Gonzalez.
Good evening, everyone.
President Melendez, you introduced this administration's Pact with the People by saying, this plan was developed by the majority of Rochester City Council to restate our collective commitment to working hand in hand with residents like you. If this is true, why have the majority of City Council members refused to YouTube speak to council sessions? When residents like us requested your support in Albany to request a forensic audit of all Monroe County, City of Rochester, and RCSD budgets and programs, we received absolutely no support. If the majority of City Council members want to work hand in hand with residents, why is it when residents held a community meeting on May 3rd, only Councilmember Lupien sent a representative? Not one of the majority bothered to attend or send someone in their stead. Your pact with the people either means just certain people, or it is an outright lie meant to distract from the fact that you do not serve us. Your pact says you are going to demand continuous improvement in code enforcement to create a uniform standard of housing and ensure no one is forced to accept substandard conditions. Yet neighbors have been fighting with the city for years to hold absentee landlords accountable for their properties, and nothing has changed. Your letter said you were restating your commitment, which means you've said all this before, yet we have not seen any relevant reduction in poverty or increase in educational success. The time for words is over. Rochester's residents want action. We want to know where and to whom all this money coming into Rochester is going. Any administration with integrity would have us as their priority, transparency, yet transparency is not what we get. In my humble opinion, your pact with the people is nothing more than a ploy to garner votes and continue business as usual, underserving the populace. Thank you.
I'm here to talk about city school district and about the violence in the city, young kids out in the street while they're supposed to be in school, committing crimes, assaulting people, robbing people, taking cars that don't belong to them, and they only get an appearance ticket. That's a slap in the face. They committed crime, okay? They gotta pay the consequences. No matter how old they are, they do something wrong, they gotta pay the consequences. Like even Dorothy, she gotta pay the consequences too. Not a slap in the face of people. They did that to Astacio, they make her life a missing hell, so why they can't do that to Dorothy? So, you know, crimes, city, it needs to stop. These kids, they belong in the schools, not on the street killing each other. Not making no more gangs or no more apartments on downtown so they can kill each other in there too. Okay? Enough is enough. Stop this violence and stop all this murdering that's going on between kids. That's all I have to say.
Melanie Streeter. Adele Gill. Area Camoni Lynn.
Council President Melendez, Council Vice President Harris, Council members Gruber, Lightfoot, Martin Smith, Lupien, Patterson, and Monroe, and Rochester community members. My name is Aria Camioni Lind, and I live in Swilburg. I operate my small business from a storefront on South Clinton Avenue, also in Swilburg. I love Rochester, and through my business, I've had the good fortune to work with the city on many satisfying projects. I'm here tonight to share my support for our City Council to fully fund a public utility study. As I mentioned, I run my small business from a storefront in Swilburg. Beginning in March 2023, after nearly 5 years of on-time payments and paying the full amount due, our G&E system glitched. After paying my March 2023 bill, I received over a dozen new invoices within 24 hours. Some of these invoices showed a credit of up to $4,000 on my account, while others showed a balance of up to $14,000. This after my highest monthly charge in that 5 years was $244. I began contacting RG&E immediately with no response and no luck. When I spoke with customer service representatives, they offered to put me on a payment plan. Finally, on December 5th, 2023, 8 months after the initial glitch, I was connected to RG&E's specialized department at NYSEG. I have spoken with their specialized department twice since December, once in March and another time in April. My case is still not resolved. I love living in Rochester, and I love running my business around the corner from my home. I'm in support of a public utility that meets the needs of our residents, businesses, and all neighbors. Please vote to fully fund the study on a public utility for me and all our neighbors. Thank you.
I want to inform you of problems I've had with other tenants who could not be evicted during the eviction moratorium. We're causing a lot of problems with me and other tenants on 170 Fulton Ave. I have a written presentation that details this matter as well as why I'm against good cause eviction laws. I encourage landlords, property owners, and homeowners to not participate in the study that the Rochester City Council has proposed. In the rent regulation law that I read, even no failure to respond allows the City of Rochester to impose a $500 civil penalty. Property owners who refuse to respond will be considered to have no vacancies. The civil penalty is cheaper than the long-term effects of not being able to raise a tenant's rent. I ask the Rochester City Council vote against the study. That will be the first step toward rent regulation. Not only will landlords and property owners have to deal with nightmare tenants, the quality of life for all lease-abiding tenants will deteriorate. And Council, I have this to give to you. And
Katharina Taylor. Dr. Michelle Winderlich. She's from the Northeast District.
Michelle Wenderlich, Metro Justice. I use they, them pronouns. Here are some things we know. The city is most burdened by RG&E's crushing rates and erratic misbilling that so often spiral into crisis for so many families. In the city of Rochester, 44% of Black and Latino households are paying between 6 and 25% of their total incomes just to RG&E. Public utilities are structurally cheaper because they don't pay for profit of foreign companies, and their borrowing rates are 1/3 of the private sector. So everything we collectively pay for through our rates would be cheaper if we do it as a public utility versus paying RG&E to do it for us. There is a state law that gives communities a right to own and control their own energy systems. It has a specifically designed process for cities, towns, and counties to separate from an existing system. Most public transitions happen at a city level, and recent studies in San Diego, Decorah, Pueblo, Long Island, Maine, Winter Park, for example, all found public utilities would result in significant cost savings even after factoring in the cost of purchasing the grid through the rates over time, over 30 years. What we need to move forward is a third-party independent study. That would give us the facts and the information to know if a public transition is feasible in the city and the county, and how to do it, including energy planning, workforce development, governance, and other plans. This would be executed by an outside firm that does have the expertise. If the city is worried about staff oversight and expertise, this is even more reason to have local government experts and community members on an advisory or other council to oversee this process. The city does need to lead, and you have the means and the capacity to do so. There is $25 million in anti-poverty funding, $5 million in a direct state aid. It's so doable, we just need you to lead.
Sorry, your time is up.
And we also support the vacancy study. Thank you so much.
I believe he's from the East District, and he's followed by Elizabeth.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. My name is Mark Cohen. My wife, my 5-month-old son Benjamin, and I live in the Upper Monroe neighborhood. My wife was 7 months old when we were in Israel on October 7th, and Hamas launched an attack killing more Jews in a single day than on any single day since the Holocaust. Anti-Semitic attacks rose by 400% in the 2 weeks following the October 7th attack, according to the Anti-Defamation League. For a group that represents just about 2.4% of the American population, we account for 60% of all religious-based hate crimes, according to the FBI. 10% of Greater Rochester's Jewish population resides here in the city of Rochester. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Rochester Police Department, the Brighton Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, and the State Police for working to keep our synagogues, the Jewish Federation, Jewish schools, and the Jewish community as a whole as safe as they can. May is Jewish Heritage Month, and so we are here asking that the City of Rochester adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism, which provides a clear and internationally recognized standard for identifying and combating anti-Semitic incidents. The IHRA definition has been endorsed by over 30 countries, including the United States, as well as over 1,100 international organizations. By adopting this definition, governments signal their commitment to aligning with international efforts to combat anti-Semitism and promote tolerance and respect for all communities. Thank you very much for your time.
She's followed by Megan Kane.
Hi, I'm asking City Council to do the vacancy study. It will help 25,000 residents in our community. I'm also asking the City Council to fund the study, fully fund the study, to evaluate RG&E as a cheaper way to go for our community. And I'm also asking the City of Rochester to reevaluate the assessments on homes in our community. When the cost of when the assessment goes up, it makes it harder on renters to remain and to afford the housing in our community. RG&E, when it goes up, people have to make that choice of how to pay their bills and how they're going to be able to pay their bills, if any. So something has to go. So this would help our community, and this would help majority of the people that are low income who are struggling now. So reevaluate all these things, and thank you, Miguel, for putting forth the legislation to do the vacancy study.
Michael Lohr. Robert Cook. Meredith Dragon. She's from the East District. And she's followed by Shane Kramer.
Thank you so much for your time tonight. In the United States, we are experiencing a meteoric rise in anti-Semitic incidents. This year alone, there's a 400% increase in hate crimes directed toward Jewish people. Rochester is not immune from anti-Semitism, as we have witnessed right here in this room. I have, and our community has experienced anti-Semitism on the streets in Rochester, in the media, and in our schools and in our neighborhoods. Standing with the Jewish community right now, recognizing that the month of May is Jewish American Heritage Month, would make a very important statement. As of December 2022, more than 1,100 global entities, including the United States government, the European Union, and the state of New York, with cities across the United States following suit, have adopted an agreed-upon definition of anti-Semitism. This definition is known as the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. The IHRA is the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and the definition reads, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. The IHRA definition is one important tool that government, educational authorities, and civil society institutions can use to illustrate and thus help identify contemporary examples of anti-Semitic expressions that not everyone may realize play on long-standing and deeply harmful anti-Semitic tropes or other forms of animus towards Jewish people. At this time, it would be an incredibly powerful statement for our Rochester City Council to do what towns, cities, and governments across the United States and the world have done by adopting the IHRA definition. We ask that you to adopt formally this definition by our City Council, as was requested in a letter to each City Council member on May 5th. Thank you so much.
Shane Kramer. Jim Berger. He's from the town of Brighton.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank all of you for putting up money last year for the implementation study about a public utility. Unfortunately, our county does not yet have the vision that will really benefit all of us, the residents. So we're back asking you folks to put up the money again for a county-wide implementation study. Whatever amount you do decide to commit to, we could say that we can return that money. If we have an implementation study, the chances are quite likely that it's going to say it's a good idea to have a publicly owned utility in this area. And instead of, currently RG&E generates over $100 million in profit that leave the area. So I think we could easily pay back the money that you would put up for the implementation study. I just think that, you know, electricity and heating our homes is a really important thing. And unfortunately, private corporations too often prioritize their profit over what's the needs of the people. You know, I think that's why our schools, our fire protection, our police, our water are all publicly owned. And it makes sense to me that gas and electric should be the same. And all these people who work for an RG&E can work for the new public entity and have good jobs. Thank you.
And she's from the town of Brighton. She's followed by Diane.
Good evening, board members. Thank you so much, or council members. My name is Christina Danino Jeffords. I am a city business owner of two businesses, the Mad Hatter Restaurant and Rochester Cinema, both on South Goodman. Both my businesses have been impacted by billing issues by RG&E. My average monthly bill at Mad Hatter is about $900 to $1,100, depending on the months, and the same for ROC Cinema. Being a business, RG&E enforces you to have an ACH set up on your accounts so that they can automatically take your funds. In 2022, I received a bill for Mad Hatter for over $23,000. Needless to say, I called the RG&E immediately, and multiple phone calls and transfers within departments and multiple reps said that the bill was correct and that it was because of a third-party energy supplier that I used, NOCO. That was not the case. No one wanted to take ownership or help me. I have never felt so helpless in my life. I was able to gain empathy from one rep that was able to turn off my auto payment plan, and as I suspected something was wrong. I was then told by that rep that there is an appeals department and was given that 800 number, a number that rings to a recording and then a voicemail for you to leave your name and information. You are at the mercy of a rep calling you back at their convenience, not to mention you better hope you're not at work or at a doctor's appointment and don't miss that call. Long story short, 13 months after dealing with RG&E on this matter, as well as filing a claim with the Attorney General's office, calling the PSC, and multiple news outlets, the appeals rep got back to me and agreed it should be only $13,000. How'd they come up with that number? I have no idea, and I still don't to this day. No explanation, no evidence, no clarity, just putting me on a payment plan, and I'm at their mercy. We need transparency. When I assumed all this was said and done, fast forward to March of this year, Rochester Cinema received a bill for over $11,000. It's happening all over again. However, this time they got their money. I was not able to turn off my auto payment, and they took the funds from my account. Something needs to change. Please help your people. This is greed at its finest. It is a foreign company. It needs to be a public utility. Please help us.
Ionello, Judy Hall. She's followed by David Hall, and they're from around the way.
Good evening, council members. My name is Judy Hall. I've been at RES for 7 years. I am not a part of any other group. Here are some of my observations, and here are some of my, I know I probably missed a bunch, but my husband and I started together because we wanted to be better people for our community. We both love dogs and thought, what a perfect fit. Right now, the shelter is in crisis. We have been at full capacity for well over a year. We have little city support, and things are not getting better. We need more resources from the city, like additional staff to help with the animals at the shelter's care, mostly dogs. With the loss of an amazing vet, Dr. B was fully engaged with the volunteers and kept us up to date on important issues. For example, she got us through the parvo illness by spending long hours researching and coming up with a plan. Sadly, too many dogs didn't make it. Without Dr. B's dedication, we would have lost a lot more dogs. It was truly refreshing and unexpected to see her dedication. Her departure was an enormous loss. We feel we should have a seat at the table when it comes to selection of a qualified shelter director. Who better to assist than the people in the trenches? Please meet with us. We know what's going on there and the needs firsthand. Let's get leadership that loves animals and has worked in the shelter environment. My Sunday shift used to be about 2-3 hours. Now it's about 5 hours. It's exhausting, and it's really hard physically to walk large dogs that pull a lot. I can't quit the shelter, so I just take it. It's personally hard for me to set boundaries, and I don't want to leave and deprive a pup of their morning walk and playtime. We need more staff, desperately. Also, we had an ongoing issue regarding walkie-talkies. We just cannot get walkies that are tough enough, and they typically just go missing. and or are breaking. I guess my time's up.
Yes. David Hall.
Hello, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've been a volunteer at Rochester Animal Services since 2017, primarily with the role of walking dogs, running them to play yard for socialization, mentoring new volunteers, and helping at adoption and fundraising events when I can. I commit to come in twice per week, which is typical of many of most volunteers. It has always been incredibly rewarding to be a part of caring for the animals there. And I know that every volunteer and staff person does all they can so that every animal is kept safe and healthy while awaiting adoption to a loving home. I'm here to express my concern that because of the current absence of both a permanent shelter director and a full-time veterinarian at a time when the shelter has been filled to capacity and beyond for over a year, that the standard of care that staff and volunteers could give to our animal friends just can't be maintained over time. When I read the letter from Paul and Beth, which was sent to the mayor and city council, I was really shaken because it spells out in stark terms the danger that the city shelter faces if there isn't a thorough, intensive search for the best director and veterinarian we can get to replace the ones we recently lost. It details much better than I can what is needed moving forward. Trying to get every dog out for exercise and to relieve themselves at least twice a day with a limited number of volunteers and staff has become much more stressful and exhausting than I ever remember it being. In all the years I've walked dogs, it's only been within the last few months that there have been times where we couldn't get everyone out during the shift, despite being up there up to 5 hours. And it has been really disheartening for everyone because we feel like we failed them when that happens, and that the dogs needlessly suffer as a result. That's just one example that illustrates how important it is to have knowledgeable leadership and that can make sure that we have the resources and support we need to give shelter animals all the love and care they deserve. I just want to share one suggestion I thought about, which would relieve some of the stress, and that would be adding large mirrors which are already at 2 locations in the shelter. It would be a very cost-effective way to prevent dogs from running to each other, which often happens during this time. And so I just Please do what you can to make sure the shelter gets the leadership that they need for the mission to thrive. Thank you.
Henry Dooley. Followed by Amy Warner.
Thank you, City Council. First time speaking here, so forgive any mumbling of words or inappropriate tone. Thank you for the opportunity. I've been a high school science teacher here in the city for the last 6 years, and so I'm speaking today with the support of Metro Justice on behalf of my students, the young people of this city who are and who will soon be your voters. I asked the City Council members to make a small gesture to fund this feasibility study. It's easy for us, and that can give those young people for whom life is far from easy the most important thing we can offer them now, which is hope. You've heard the facts tonight about public power versus private profiteering, piracy of our resources. It is also a piracy of hope. I hope that the facts do move you, but if they don't, I'm here to speak to your conscience. I posit that any resident of the city who has actually substantially benefited from the investment and management of RG&E that they've made in our power grid and our political system, that individual will be fine no matter what. If you're in a position where the corporate control of these utilities have benefited you politically or economically, that individual is going to be treated very well by our economic system, whether this study goes forward or not. So why vote no? Why vote for them when it doesn't matter to them? Make your influence here matter. It's a question of conscience, and if it feels impossible to move on this because of connections and contributions, I understand that may be the case. Or maybe we can open this question, what is the best thing we can do for the hope of this community? Don't we have an obligation, at a minimum, to ensure that everybody has access to the benefits of the actual resources of this region, that all, and not just a few, can equally access the power and not continue to pay a company that is not accountable or responsive to us? And you are accountable to us, to the city voters, to the future voters. Council members of conscience, if that all sounds too Pollyannish or ideological, I ask you to remember we're being asked for one simple thing, one practical small step that could lead to a real change in direction away from lack, away from this austerity for the people time and time again, and away from hopelessness into a more hopeful Rochester. Thank you very much for my time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Warner. I'm a practicing attorney. I've been in the community for over 30 years. I do a lot of volunteer work for Congressman Morelli's Systems Integration Project, such as co-chairing his legal work group, chief privacy expert on his data governance group. So I do a lot of volunteer. Currently, I'm serving on the board of the Verona Street Animal Society, and I am a volunteer in person. I go to the shelter, so I wanted to see the things that have been raised before this committee for myself. And what I do is I mop the floors, I do laundry, and I will do anything to give the vet techs and the staff members a break. They're overwhelmed. So I didn't see that serving on the board for the 5 or 6 years before that, because you're just there once in a while and you just hear things. I'm not on Facebook, I don't do any of that stuff, but you hear rumblings. So I wanted to see for myself. And I can tell you, when I go there, what they really need is some structure. They want to know what their roles are. They just need a culture change. Because right now, when you go there, you're underwater. You're overwhelmed. People come in, it's very stressful, and you have staff there that are remarkable. Some young people in their early 30s dealing with very difficult things every day. And we just need to give them a break. So what we're asking for, we see this as an opportunity. There are open positions. We'd like to be involved in the selection process so that we get quality people in there, because quality people are going to eventually help the city. If you have the appropriate people, you're going to use resources adequately, both finances and people. You're not going to hear these rumblings, and then we can get the culture increase. We can make it a positive experience, because ultimately the shelters benefit the community, not just the city, the community at large. So we're just here to try and ask for your help so that we can get the best qualified people in to fill these positions. So thank you very much for your time.
Hi, my name is Frankie Burnson. I'm a 12-year volunteer at Rochester Animal Services. I echo all of my other fellow volunteers' concerns here tonight. But I have never been as concerned about the shelter as I am today. It is so full, we have to put dogs in crates. It's a bad situation for these dogs, and the treatment makes our shelter look bad, and frankly, it's a poor reflection of our city. It's a disgrace. Due to the lack of a veterinarian, animals cannot be spayed or neutered, and yet are being released to their adopters. Releasing unaltered cats and dogs will contribute to the problem of backyard breeding and overpopulation of pets in general in our city. And you can imagine what the shelter might look like a year from now if we don't take action on this. Thank you very much.
My name is John Kastner. I serve on the board of the Rochester Regional Group Sierra Club, which represents about 3,000 local members. First, I'd like to thank the council for their endorsement of a feasibility study for a publicly owned energy utility. It is truly unfortunate that your colleagues in the county legislature did not share your far-sighted vision for a better, more democratic, more economical, and environmentally sustainable energy future. We ask that you now pick up their slack and take us where we need to go. There are roughly 3,000 municipal energy utilities in the United States. Some 2,000 of these are publicly owned, delivering energy to their communities at rates 13 to 30% cheaper than their privately owned counterparts. They also get 40% of their energy from renewable sources, and this is why I'm speaking to you tonight. Climate change is beyond a doubt one of the biggest factors that will determine whether or not there is a future for complex life on Earth. Nothing else will matter as much if we do not resolve the self-created dilemma. Serious response to the climate emergency that is already devastating the lives of Americans and indeed all life on Earth is long overdue. I spent the last 14 years of my life reading, writing, and acting on climate change. We must move away from fossil fuels with all the speed we can muster. Public power will provide substantial momentum towards this goal on a local level. You, the members of City Council, have an opportunity here to lead not only Rochester, but Monroe County and the state in the direction we must go to preserve hope for the future. Please show us the leadership we most desperately need. Build the momentum, fund the study.
Council members and everybody. My name is Jennifer Goheen. I am speaking in favor of funding a feasibility study on public power. And my comments are going to be melodic. Public power utilities have lower rates. Get the facts so the people can vote. Seems like we could use one around this place. Get the facts so the people can vote. Our water, roads, and libraries, they're all public, seems to me. A study of feasibility is a bargain in comparison to RG&E. RG&E is Rochester's curse. Get the facts so the people can vote. Customer service couldn't get any worse. Get the facts so the people can vote. I call the line, my bill's messed up. Calls go to Connecticut. They don't care what we have to pay, just so the shareholders have a good day. RG&E pretends it cares about us all right. Get the facts so the people can vote. It's a greedy, bloated, sociopathic, multinational parasite. Get the facts so the people can vote. 3 in 4 jobs, it moved away. Bring them back with union pay. The infrastructure rots and breaks because they don't maintain it when they jack up our rates. Certain people are saying that it's too much fuss. Get the facts so the people can vote. Utility owned by us. Get the facts so the people can vote. Although it's not their expertise, Managing utilities, a study of feasibility will give us all the information we need. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Me dirijo a ustedes porque las personas que están detrás de mí no nos representan. Ellos no representan a nadie aquí. Es la quinta vez que yo vengo a demandar que haya la electricidad. Porque son ladrones. Nos roban el dinero. No hacemos nada. Deberían de hacer el estudio que se le pide en el pueblo. Un momento, estoy hablando, no me interrumpa. Tienen que hacer el estudio. Hablar. Creo que me han cortado. No sé.
No se te oye y tienes que pararte aquí para hablarle a ellos.
Yo no quiero hablarle, yo quiero hablarle al pueblo. Quiero hablarle al pueblo de ustedes. Son los que mandan en esta ciudad. ¿Por qué? Porque no lo escuchan. Porque si están aquí atrás, no representan a nadie de ustedes. Y necesitamos un estudio. Porque son ladrones. Para terminar un poquito de inglés. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And stop the Holocaust against the Palestinians. Adiós.
Heather Mayan. She is from Canandaigua, and she's followed by Jennifer Brown.
Thank you so much for your time. I am Heather Lyon. I'm from Canandaigua. Policy major, alumni. I am very integrated with the City of Rochester. I voluntary work. Do a lot of voluntary work with the Rochester Rams. I mentor 3 of the kids that are part of the program, and a huge volunteer for that same program. With that being said, I was able to meet a lot of the community members, so I'd like to speak on their behalf as well as the Rochester City people, that the public policy that surrounds this study is very important. It is important that the RG&E, that the people understand that RG&E represents corporate America, where the public utility would more represent the City of Rochester. The REDS plan, it does touch base on the cost-benefit analysis that moves policy in itself, which would be targeting all the facets in which is listed. Forgive me, there's a lot to cover in a short amount of time. I did in college do some study work on many different energies, and it is to the understanding that the contributions that RG&E puts in your community in large bundles, such as was stated earlier by a gentleman, that is just a temporary economic boost, similar to hydraulic fracturing. They come in, they put a boost to the community, representation of what would long-term benefit, like for the community members here in Rochester, such as a public utility would. It would be a long-term benefit, not just a short-term benefit. And the increasing rents, that is a very real thing. In the community in which I have integrated myself in Rochester in my volunteering, there are many people that are facing that very thing.
Our organization was formed in 2009
provide funding to enhance the experience and outcomes for animals that come through the shelter. Since inception, we have donated over $2 million to Rochester Animal Services and recruited and managed thousands of volunteers. Currently, we provide funding for the shelter play yard, medical supplies, and even some shelter staff, all totaling over $280,000 annually. The SAS, as a partnering organization for the last 19 years, has been privy to firsthand insight as to the complexity and importance that Rochester Animal Services and the Shelter Executive Director have in the Rochester community. The Executive Director role will determine the direction of animal care for over 200,000 people. There is no other organization that fills so many specific needs and services. Now, I am here with other board members, some of which who are also speaking, to convince council to become directly involved in a very pressing need of the shelter. The shelter has been without a director for almost 8 months. This void has created an environment of uncertainty and a lack of direction. This, coupled with the loss of the recently hired and highly qualified shelter veterinarian, has exacerbated these issues. As a result, the SAS has seen an accelerated decline in financial support for our organization, impacting the operations of Rochester Animal Services. We submitted a letter to the council in advance of this meeting, which provides further specific details about our concerns. Now, the city is beginning the process to recruit a replacement executive director. Our letter is paralleled by a letter submitted by certain other shelter volunteers. Now, the SAS feels that due to the importance of these roles, that you do become involved in resolving these issues for the shelter and the community at large. Thank you.
Council. My name is Dr. Jordan Forrest Miller. I'm out in Rush, so I don't personally deal with RG&E, but as a volunteer with Metro Justice, I have canvassed in the 19th Ward and have been listening to the people's stories about RG&E, and it's really not a good look. I'm trained as a sociologist, so if nothing else, I'm very attuned to oppressive patterns within our society. One oppressive pattern apparent to me in Rochester is the lack of local control of our public utility. Because of the outsourcing of Rochester's electricity, shareholders in Spain are making bank off the exploitation of Rochester residents. You all, city council members, sit in a position of power and can make a huge impact over the lives and well-being of the people of Rochester. I'm sure you've heard it many times and in many ways, but I'll say it again. The right and good way forward for the people and for the planet is to commission and fund an implementation study for a public utility, as well as support a vacancy study to evaluate a path toward rent stabilization. I hypothesize a public utility study will show us, with data and everything, that RG&E is failing to be responsive to their customers, that money is not being invested in infrastructure and sustainability, and that it would actually save us money in the long term to have electricity by the people, for the people, instead of funneling money to the rich. I am angry that the people have to fight for our basic needs. The resistance to just doing a study tells me a lot about the county legislators' corporate priorities. We already have the money from the anti-poverty initiative, so where do you align? With the people or with the for-profit corporations? Vote yes on 141, support public power, free Palestine. Thank
My name is Lori, and I'm here representing the voices of Verona. I want to thank you for listening to our concerns. However, our pleas for change are not really being heard. I'm wondering how many of you own or love animals, and how many of you are really concerned about the stray population and our old, overcapacity city shelter. Recently, Lollipop Farm was awarded $5 million. Why aren't there funds being allocated to Verona? Why isn't City Council, Shirley Green, who oversees animal services, and Mayor Malik Evans doing everything possible to solve the problems at our shelter? Verona was built around 1940 and is 84 years old. It was assessed twice in the last 10 years and has several code violations, yet nothing has been fixed or updated. Verona is in desperate need of a director and a full-time vet and additional staff. The staff and volunteers are overworked, overwhelmed, and the despair they must witness on a daily basis has to be heart-wrenching. Our city shelter has been at full capacity for months. Dogs are being stacked in crates and lining the hallways. Dogs are being euthanized due to lack of space. Dogs are being dumped on the streets because there are no other options. According to Verona's website, they are not offering a spay and neuter voucher, and potential adopters cannot afford the $400 to $800 for spaying and neutering, therefore less dogs will be adopted. As of today, there are 41 available dogs, 36 are pit bulls, and who knows how many more are in the facility waiting to be processed. We have a crisis in Rochester. Hundreds of cats and dogs are suffering and trying to survive on the streets. This needs to be a priority. Please help these innocent, voiceless animals. Their lives depend on us. Thank you.
Christopher.
Electrician. I worked at Eastman Kodak prior to that, and I worked with Powerhouse there, both of their Powerhouse. And that tells you a lot, because Eastman Kodak outsourced a lot of stuff, but one thing they never did is they never outsourced their powerhouses, because RG&E could never do it cheaper than they were doing it themselves. And that's the same with us. You have everybody talking, guys in the green shirts that are paid from RG&E, they're employees that are paid to be here. I'm not paid to be here. I work all day, and I gotta go in a couple hours to do another shift. But what I am telling you is, why are they afraid of the study? The study is just finding out whether it's worth the money or not. It's not that big of a deal, but they're spending how much money? Now all of a sudden RG&E cares about people's bills. They were giving out free lunches the other day when Metro Justice had a rally in Washington Square Park. They were giving out picnic lunches. RG&E was doing that. Don't use my money to give me a picnic lunch. Give me cheaper rates. That's what we want. And the way we're gonna get it is a public utility. The one gentleman mentioned that they gave money to a museum, the Play Museum, they gave $1 million. Well, that's good. They took $100 million in profit. So they gave us back $1 million? Where's the other $99 million? Where's that going? They're taking that. And we really need to fund that study. The reason why the county didn't, it was short by 1 vote. That's because folks are getting money from RG&E. That's what happened, that they didn't pass that resolution. But I'm asking you to do it. I think it's the right thing to do. I know it's the right thing to do, because RG&E wouldn't be spending the money to fight it if it was just a Monday thing that was going to show their position. It's going to reinforce our position. When I mentioned the county, when I spoke there, my family, we got a lot of very left-wing liberal folks. We got a lot of right-wing folks. But when we get together on a holiday, we all agree a public utility is way better than what we have right now.
Vivian Trittenbach from the town of Gates.
Thank you for having me here. I rent an apartment in Highlight Community Center, and I'm going to keep it short and sweet since we're near the end. I'm speaking here to everyone to fund and commission a public utility study. Many people have said many great points. RG&E, I have no idea how there's a windstorm in my apartment, we're all like, oh my God, our power's going out. Like, other tea lights, and I like made oatmeal with it. The power came on later. So I know already, it was a point said earlier, there's already been a lot of public utility studies elsewhere San Diego, Maine, Pueblo, and they all found that transitioning to a public utility is financially feasible, has significant cost savings, even when you factor in the cost of buying the grid. I also want to say really quickly, solidarity with the Rochester Tenant Union. I work in education and childcare. A lot of the entry-level jobs, they don't pay much, so I do have those moments of horror where I'm like, bro, I don't have roommates. I can't afford to live alone. So I really support what they're doing, and I would love study. That would be great. I also want to thank City Council, because I know was it a month ago or a few weeks ago? I know there was the tabling of the bid. That would be amazing. I'm so happy. I just really want to thank City Council for that. But yeah, other than that, I really want City Council to fund and commission a public utility study, because I feel like the only thing we have to lose is potentially our trust in RG&E to provide us cheap rates. I think there's only benefits of going through this study, and would be good for our community, as well as taking a right step in the direction of climate and action, also reducing the burdens on Rochester residents. Thank you very much.
Anti-Semitism is really unlimited. We're asking the City Council to adopt IHRA, the International Holocaust Remembrance Association definition of anti-Semitism. Addressing anti-Semitism is not only a matter of justice, but also essential to promoting peace and reconciliation. By confronting hatred and intolerance in all its forms, including anti-Semitism, you can contribute to building trust and understanding among diverse communities, fostering social cohesion and civility. By adopting the IHRA definition, you can help strengthen our efforts to combat hate speech and discrimination targeting Jewish individuals and communities. This can help create a safer, more inclusive society, regardless of religion or ethnic background. The IHRA definition has been used by the U.S. State Department since 2010 and the U.S. Department of Education since 2019. It's been adopted by more than half the U.S. states as a district public. It's used by the American Holocaust Museum on anti-Semitism. The IHRA definition is becoming preeminent and most widely accepted definitional and learning tools around the world in understanding manifestations of anti-Semitism today. No other definition is widely endorsed and utilized. Non-legally binding. This means we can better enable law enforcement to identify anti-Semitism together and on our data. The working definition is helpful in public discourse as well as training for media, educating public authorities without impeding the legal right to freedom of speech. Campus administrators, law enforcement, and civil society organizations around the world all use the IHRA definition as an important tool to help understand other Jewish bias. This month, May, is Jewish American History Month. We're asking about the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism this month. Thank you.
So we have reached the end of our Speaker Council session. Before we close, I want to thank all speakers for joining us tonight, as well as I want to mention that Rochester City Council is seeking applicants for the vacant Police Accountability Board seat in Rochester's East District. The board's role is to oversee the agency's operations, set the agency's priorities, and serve on panels during the board's investigatory process. We are looking for diverse applicants who reside in the East District, willing to commit to finishing the 2 years remaining on a 3-year term. For more information, there's flyers, I believe, that are posted, as well as in the back room, and you can also speak to any one of our staff members here before you leave tonight. So thank you all for participating, and our regular council meeting will be Tuesday, May 21st at 6 p.m. here in Chambers. Thank you and good night.
You forgot number 14 on the speaker list.
I think it's like